This video is an overview of the eForm Builder interface. Your eForm Builder menu sits on top of the toolbox and the eForm Builder canvas, and it includes these menu items. The Save icon. When hovering over the Save icon, a drop-down list will be displayed, giving you these options. Save. This saves your eForm, allowing you to continue editing it at another time. Save and Check-in saves and commits your changes. Checkout locks the selected items and prevents other users from changing it. And Undo Checkout. This deletes all changes made to the eForm configuration since the last check-in. Next in the eForm Builder menu is the Print icon, and when hovered over, a drop-down list will be displayed, giving you these options. Print lets you print the eForm. Save as PDF lets you save the eForm in a PDF format. Next is the clipboard icon, and this contains basic editing tools. When hovering over the clipboard icon, a drop-down menu will be displayed. Cut. This allows you to cut a form control from its original position. Copy. This copies the content from its original place and creates a duplicate copy of the content at the desired location without deleting the content from the original location. Paste. This inserts the copied or cut data at the cursor's location. Delete. This deletes the selected item. Undo. This allows you to undo your last procedure or action. Redo cancels the last undo or reapplies your last undo action. Settings. This opens the eForm settings window, allowing you to configure the settings for your eForm, and it has the following tabs. The General tab specifies the basic configuration for your form, such as Form Title. This is where you set the title text for your form by entering it in the text box. Form Title Style. This is where you set the size of the title for your form. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options: small, medium, large, and extra large. And the Form Title Alignment specifies the position of the title on your form. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list, giving you these options. Left displays the form title on the left side. Center will center your form title, and right will display the form title on the right side. The Controls tab specifies the configuration of the controls for your eForm, such as Label Position. This specifies the position of the text label and how it shows on the form for a control. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list, giving you these options. Top. This sets the label to be at the top of the container. And Left specifies the position of the label to be at the left of the container. Tab Key Orientation specifies the direction form controls are selected when a user presses the Tab key. The accepted values are horizontal, which moves the cursor horizontally from left to right when the Tab key is used, or vertical, which moves the cursor vertically from top to bottom when the Tab key is used. The Appearance tab specifies the look and feel of your form, with such features as the font family, which specifies the font family to use for the input text and label. Font size specifies the default size for the input text and labels used on your form. Font style, which specifies the style of the font for the input text and label by setting these values. Bold, which shows the input text and label in bold. Underline will show the label underlined, and italic, which shows the label in italics. Background color sets the background color used on your form. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette where you can enter the hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Form Title Color allows you to set the foreground color for the title on your form. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette where you can enter the hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Background Image. This allows you to add an image to your eForm by selecting from these options. Set Image allows you to specify the image used for your eForm. By clicking on this button, the Image Picker window will open, allowing you to select the background image. You can upload an image from a URL or your local file system. And Image Position. This specifies the position of the background image on your eForm. Clicking the Image Position button will open the Background Image Position window, allowing you to set the image size, repeat, and position settings. In the CSS class section, you can specify the CSS class that will be used for your eForm. In the Actions tab, you can configure the action buttons for your eForm. We have Show Submit button, Show Cancel button, Show Save button, Show Reset button, Show Print button, and Show Save as PDF button. By selecting these buttons, you can enable or disable how these actions will show on your form. To show a button on your eForm, check the checkbox next to the button you want to display. Uncheck the checkbox next to buttons you do not want to display. This will update your eForm in real time. For example, if you uncheck the Show Cancel button checkbox, it will remove the button from the eForm. Checking the checkbox again will add the Cancel button back onto your eForm. The text box to the right of the Show Button option displays the label of the button. To customize the button's label, click in the text box, delete the current label, and enter a new label. This will update the button label in real time and display the new label. The action button's position specifies the position of the action buttons on the eForm, with such positions as left to specify the action buttons to show to the left on your eForm with either a top or bottom placement, center to specify the action buttons showing in the center of your eForm with either a top or bottom placement, and right to specify that the action buttons show to the right on the eForm with either a top or bottom placement. URL on Submit specifies the URL to send the form user to when the eForm is submitted. And URL on Cancel specifies the URL to send a form user to when an eForm is canceled. The Advanced tab specifies the advanced settings for your eForm, such as cell padding to specify the space in pixels between the cell wall and the cell content. The default is 10 pixels. Row spacing specifies in pixels the space between the rows on the eForm. Show Header to User Form specifies if the eForm header shows when the eForm opens. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Yes, this will show the header, and no, this will not show the header. Enable multiple languages on the eForm. This specifies if the form user can select a language from a list of available languages in the eForm. Checking the checkbox will let the form user select more than one language, and unchecking the checkbox will prevent the user from selecting more than one language. Allow user to switch form language specifies if the form user can change the language in the eForm. To enable this feature, the checkbox of the Enabled Multiple Languages on the form must be checked. Then the checkbox Allow User to Switch Form Language can be selected. Checking the checkbox will let a form user change the language in the eForm, and unchecking the checkbox will show the language in the eForm based on the form user's settings. Default Language Name. This specifies the default language to show on the eForm. To enable this feature, the checkbox Enable Multiple Languages on the form and Allow Users to Switch Form Language must first be checked. Then the default language name can be selected from the drop-down list if available. Show Validation Summary. This specifies whether the eForm shows all the validation messages. Checking the checkbox will show the summary of validation messages in the form preview or when the eForm opens. And unchecking the checkbox will prevent the summary of validation messages from showing. Ask confirmation on Submit. This specifies a message that will ask for confirmation when a form user submits an eForm. Checking the checkbox will display a text box where you can specify the message to display when asking for this confirmation. Unchecking the checkbox will submit the eForm without a confirmation. Ask confirmation on Save. This specifies to ask for confirmation when a form user saves an eForm. Checking the checkbox will display a text box where you would specify the message that will be displayed when asking for confirmation. Unchecking the checkbox will save the eForm without the need of a confirmation. Submit Validation Fail Message. This specifies the validation message that shows when a form user submits an eForm that has validation errors. The message that is displayed is entered in the text box. And Section Validation Fail Message. This is for sections when using sequential navigation and specifies a validation message that shows when the form user submits an eForm that has validation errors in the form sections. The message that is displayed can be entered in this text box. The information covered in the Form Settings window is optional and not required to complete before building your eForm. The form settings can be left to their default values and the window closed. Sections. This lets you configure the form sections and navigation settings for your eForm. Clicking on Sections will open the Form Section Settings window and has the following tabs. The General tab specifies the basic configuration for sections on your eForm, such as Add New Section. This specifies the title for a form section. List of sections. This specifies the order in which the sections are shown on the form. To begin creating sections for your eForm, click on the text box in the list of sections and enter the name of your first section. If you need more sections in your form, click on the Add New Section text box and enter in the name of your next section. Then click the Add button to the right. This will add a new section to the bottom of the list of sections. To set a section as the default section that the form user sees when first opening the form, click the radio button that is to the left of the section you want to mark as default. To delete a section, click on the delete icon to the right of the section text box. This will delete the section from your list of sections and your eForm. Next is Validation Rule. This lets you configure validation rules for your eForm. Clicking on the Validation Rule icon will open the Rule Builder window, where you can define a rule for that section. And Display Rule. This lets you configure a display rule for an eForm. Clicking on the Display Rules icon will open the Rule Builder window, where you can define a display rule for that section. The Settings tab specifies the settings for your eForm section, such as Navigation Style, to specify how the form user can go through the form sections. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Sequential. This lets the form user go through the sections in a specified sequence. Ad hoc, or not in a specific order, lets the form user go to any section in any order. Show Navigation Bar specifies if the navigation bar shows on the eForm. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Selecting Yes will show the navigation bar on the eForm, and selecting No will disable the navigation bar. Next Button Text specifies the text to show on your next button. To change the text of your next button, click on the Next Button Text text box, delete the current label, and enter a new label for the next button. Set Fixed Height. This specifies if the sections are set to a specific height. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Yes will set the sections to have a fixed height, and No to not have a fixed height. Clickable Navigation Bar specifies if the form user can click the navigation bar to go to a different form section. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Selecting Yes allows the form user to click the navigation bar. Selecting No disables this feature. Previous Button Text specifies the text to show for your previous button. To change the text of your previous button, click the Previous Button text box. Delete the current label and enter a new label for the previous button. Execute Display Rules on Form Load also specifies whether to run the display rules for the form when it is loaded. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Setting it to Yes will cause the rules to run when the form is loaded, and setting to No will prevent the rules from running when the form is loaded. The Layout tab specifies the style and position of the navigation bar on your eForm, such as the navigation bar style. This specifies the style of the navigation bar, with 3 different style choices. The navigation bar position specifies the position of the navigation bar on your eForm. There are 4 positions to select from: the top, the left side, right side, and bottom of your eForm. Pagination Buttons Position. This specifies the position of the page navigation buttons. Such positions are bottom right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom left and right, top left, top right, top center, and top left and right of your eForm. The Appearance tab specifies the appearance of your form sections. The Navigation Bar Style section consists of these options. Pick from predefined styles. Clicking this button opens the Predefined Styles window, where you can choose from a predefined selection of colors. Clicking on the Select a Style select box will display a drop-down list which consists of these color choices. Default will set the navigation bar to the default color theme. Red will set the navigation bar style to a red color theme. Green will set it to a green color theme, and orange will set it to an orange color theme. With the color selections made, click the OK button to save the color choice and close the Predefined Styles window. To cancel the color selection and return to the default color, click the Cancel button. Background allows you to specify the background color for your navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Title Background. This specifies the title background color for your navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Title Foreground specifies the title foreground color. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Selected Title Background specifies the title background color for a selected navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Selected Title Foreground specifies the title foreground color for a selected navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Visited Title Background will specify the title background color for a navigation bar that has been opened before. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Visited Title Foreground specifies the title foreground color for a navigation bar that has been opened before. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Title Hover Background. This specifies the title background color of the navigation bar when the eForm user hovers over it. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Title Hover Foreground. This specifies the title foreground color of the navigation bar when the form user hovers over it. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Font Family specifies the font family of the label for the navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list containing the available fonts. Font Size. This specifies the font size of the label for your navigation bar. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list that consists of available font sizes. Font Style specifies the style for the label of the navigation bar. You can set these values: bold, underline, and italics. In Section Style, you will find these options: Background, which specifies the background color of the form section. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Show Border specifies if the eForm shows a border around the panel. Checking the box will show the border around the panel, and unchecking the box will remove the border. Border Width specifies the width of the border in pixels. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list of the available border sizes. And Border Color specifies the border color for your control. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette, where you can enter a hex color code or select a color from the color palette. With the form section settings configured, click the OK button to save the changes and close the form section settings window. Clicking the Cancel button deletes the changes made to the form section settings window, returns the settings to their default value, and closes the form section settings window. If you define sections for your eForm in the General tab, clicking on the OK button will add these sections to your eForm, where you can navigate between the different sections by clicking on the tabs in the navigation bar. This completes the review of the Sections menu item. The next menu item on the eForms Builder menu is CSS, and this lets you add custom CSS code to your eForm. Hovering over the CSS menu item displays a drop-down list giving you these options: CSS, which will open a Form CSS window where you can specify CSS for your eForm, and Shared CSS will open a Shared Form CSS window where you can configure custom CSS that can be used with all your eForms in your application. The next menu item in the eForm Builder menu is JavaScript. This lets you add custom JavaScript code to the eForm. Hovering over the JS menu item displays a drop-down list giving you these options. JavaScript, which will open the Form JavaScript window, where you can specify the JavaScript functions for your eForm. And Shared JavaScript. This will open the Shared Form JS window, where you can upload and apply JavaScript functions for all your eForms in your application. Next is Columns. This specifies the number of columns to show on your eForm. The default number of columns on your form is 3. Each column is represented by a dotted line box. To change the number of columns, click on Columns in the eForm Builder menu. This will open the column layout window, where you can select between 1 and 10 columns to display on your eForm. To select a number, hover over your selection and click on the number. This will highlight the numbers, including your selection, indicating the number of columns that will show on your eForm. Click OK to apply the columns and to close the column layout window. Clicking the Cancel button will close the column layout window, leaving it set to the default number of 3 columns. When you make the selection of the number of columns to display on your eForm and click OK, you will see the number of dotted line boxes increase or reduce in size to represent the number and size of the columns on your eForm. The next eForm Builder menu item is Perspective View. This will allow you to see how the eForm will look on different types of devices. When you hover over Perspective View, a drop-down list will be displayed, giving you these options. PC Browser. This will show how the eForm will look on a desktop or laptop. Tablet Landscape. This shows how the eForm will look on a tablet in landscape mode. Tablet Portrait. This shows how the eForm would look on a tablet in portrait mode. Phone Landscape. This shows how an eForm would look on a mobile phone in landscape mode. And Phone Portrait shows how an eForm will look on a mobile phone in portrait mode. Next is the View Form JSON menu item. Hovering over this item will display a drop-down list giving you these options. View Form JSON, which will open a Form JSON window and show the eForm configuration in the JSON format. Export Form. This saves the eForm to a JSON format to your local file system. And Import Form uploads from your local file system an eForm that has been saved in the JSON format. The next menu item is Library. Clicking on Library expands My Control Library located on the right side of the eForm Builder. The My Control Library displays a list of the form controls that have been created on all your eForms across your application. All form controls except Subform are added to your My Control Library when you save the form control configuration. If you delete a form control from an eForm, a copy of the form control will still be listed in the My Control Library. A search box lets you search for a specific form control from the My Control Library. To search for a form control, click in the search text box and enter the name of the form control. As you type the name, the search results will update in real time. A form control that is listed in the My Control Library can only be used on an eForm where they're not already existing. Let's open a new eForm and click on Library in the eForm Builder menu to open the My Control Library. Or we can click on the arrow that is pointing to the left of the My Control Library tab on the right side of the eForm Builder. We will locate the form control that we want to use, and we will drag and drop that control onto an empty cell on your eForm. This will open the Form Control Field Settings window where you can configure the settings for that control. To close the My Control Library, click the arrow next to the My Control Library heading that is pointed to the right. This will collapse and hide the list of form controls. The next menu item we have is Form Data. Form Data shows a list of form controls used on your eForm as process data variables. You can use these variables to configure an activity instead of using fixed variables. Clicking on Form Data will open the Data Model menu on the right side of your eForm Builder, displaying the list of form controls that are available to use as a process data variable. Clicking on the arrow next to Form Fields will open it in a submenu, listing the form controls that can be used as process data variables for configuring your activities. To close the Data Model menu, click on the X to the right of the Data Model menu heading. Next is Rules. Hovering over this will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Rule Builder, which lets you configure rules and specify the behavior of your eForm and its form controls. Clicking on Rule Builder will open the Rule Builder window, where you can build and define rules for your form. It consists of the following: Form Event, which specifies when rules run in the eForm. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Load. This specifies that the rules will run when the eForm has loaded. Before Submit. This specifies that the rules will run before an eForm is submitted. Validation on Submit specifies that the rules will run when the eForm has been submitted. And after Submit, this specifies that the rules will run after the eForm has been submitted. Selecting Load from the Form Event drop-down list will display a When and Then section for defining your rules. The When section specifies when to apply the rule in your eForm. Clicking on the drop-down list will display these options. All. This specifies that the rule is applied when all conditions are met. Any. This specifies that the rule is applied when any one of the conditions are met. And None. This specifies that the rule applies when all conditions are not met. Clicking on the blue plus icon on the right side of the When box will add another When statement inside the first When statement to create a complex logical expression. To delete a When statement, click the Delete icon on the right side of the plus icon. The Then section specifies the actions to take when the rule condition is met. Selecting Before Submit from the Form Event drop-down list will display the When and Then sections for defining your rules. The When section specifies when to apply the rule in your eForm. Clicking on the drop-down list will display these options. All. This specifies that the rule is applied when all conditions are met. Any. This specifies that the rule is applied when any one of the conditions are met. And None. This specifies that the rule applies when all conditions are not met. Clicking on the blue plus icon on the right side of the When box will add another When statement inside the first When statement to create a complex logical expression. To delete a When statement, click the Delete icon on the right side of the plus icon. The Then section specifies the actions to take when the rule condition is met. Selecting Validation on Submit from the Form Event drop-down list will display the When and the Conditions Failure message sections for defining a rule. The When section specifies when to apply the rule in your eForm. Clicking on the drop-down list will display these options. All. This specifies that the rule is applied when all conditions are met. Any. This specifies that the rule is applied when any one of the conditions are met. And None. This specifies that the rule applies when all conditions are not met. Clicking on the blue plus icon on the right side of the When box will add another When statement inside the first When statement to create a complex logical expression. To delete a When statement, click the Delete icon on the right side of the plus icon. The Conditions Failure message specifies the message to show if the rule condition is not met during validation. Selecting After Submit from the Form Event drop-down list will display a Redirect URL Conditions section for defining a rule. Redirect URL Conditions specifies a URL to send the form user to when the eForm is submitted. Clicking on the drop-down list will display these options. All. This specifies that the rule is applied when all conditions are met. Any. This specifies that the rule is applied when any one of the conditions are met. And None. This specifies that the rule applies when all conditions are not met. Clicking the blue plus icon on the right side of the Redirect URL Conditions box will add another Redirect URL statement inside the first Redirect URL statement to create complex logical expressions. To delete a redirect URL statement, click the Delete icon to the right of the additional Redirect URL text box. To the right of the Form Event Select box, there is an Add Rule button. This button adds additional rule statements that you can define in your rule builder. The Add Rule button is only available when Load, before submit or validation on submit is selected in the form event select box. On the left side, there is a Fields and Actions section. The Fields section specifies a list of form controls that have been used in your eForm, and this will be populated as the eForm is built. The Actions section specifies the action taken when the rule condition is met in the When section. With your rules defined, click the OK button in the lower right corner of the Rule Builder window to save and apply the rules to your form. Clicking the Cancel button will delete any rules you have built and close the Rule Builder window. You can also cancel by clicking the X in the top right corner of the Rule Builder window. The next item in Rules is Theme Builder. Theme Builder lets you customize the theme for your eForm. Clicking on Theme Builder will open the Theme Builder window where you can preview and apply a theme to your form. Theme Builder is divided into two columns. The left column is where you can choose a theme template and see what aspects of the form will be affected. The right column is a sample form that will preview how your form will look when a theme template color has been applied. To preview a template, click on Theme Templates in the left column. A drop-down list of 6 predefined templates will be displayed. To preview a color, highlight the template and click on it. This will apply the color to the sample product registration form in the right column. If you click on General, Header, Clickable Default, Clickable Hover, Clickable Active, or Highlight tabs in the left column, they will expand, showing you how the theme colors will be applied to the form, such as text, labels, buttons, and other form features. To apply a template to your eForm, click the Apply this theme to form button in the lower right corner of the Theme Builder window. This will apply the theme to your eForm and close the Theme Builder window. To cancel a theme from being applied to your eForm, click the Cancel button or the X in the top right corner of the Theme Builder window. This will leave the default theme selected for your form and will close the Theme Builder window. This completes the review of Theme Builder. The next item on the Rules eForm Builder menu is Translator. And this allows you to configure Translator to translate the language of your eForm and its form controls. To enable this feature, 2 conditions must be met. First, the Enable Multiple Languages on the Form checkbox in the Form Settings window under the Advanced tab must be checked. Second, you need to create a translation language for a multilingual eForm. To do this, you must go to the Manage Center by clicking on the Manage module in the Portal menu. This completes the review of the Rules eForm Builder menu. The next item on the eForm Builder menu is Bulk Edit. Bulk Edit allows you to configure the properties of all form controls in your eForm at one time. Clicking on Bulk Edit opens the Edit Fields window and displays the form controls that have been used in building your eForm. The Filter properties specifies which properties of the form controls are to show on the table. Clicking on the Filter Properties select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Select All selects all the properties of the form controls. Field Type, this specifies the type of form controls used in your eForm. Label specifies the text label that shows on your eForm from the form control. Internal Name, this specifies a unique technical name for your form control. Help Text is the description for your form control. Help Text Display specifies if the field shows the text in the Help Text field when the form user hovers over the label or field. Mandatory, this specifies that the field is mandatory. Mandatory Message, this specifies the message to show if the form user does not enter data in a mandatory form control. Enabled specifies if the form user can change the value of a field. Read Only specifies if the field accepts user input. Visible specifies if the form user sees the field on the eForm. Right to left specifies if the text for your control, including user input, shows from right to left. Text Align specifies the horizontal alignment of user input for this control. Font Name specifies the font family of the input text and label. Font Size specifies the size of the input text and label for your form control. Bold specifies if the label on your form control is bold. Italic specifies if the label on your form control is italic, and underline specifies if the label on your control is underlined. Background color. This specifies the background color of your navigation bar. Border color. This specifies the border color of your form control. Foreground color. This specifies the foreground color of your form control. Apply font properties to control. This specifies if the control gets the font properties from the properties that were set in form settings. Container CSS class. This specifies the CSS class for the container of your form control. Field CSS class. This specifies the CSS class for the field in your form control. Label CSS class specifies the CSS class for the label of your form control. And data security. This specifies whether to store information from the field in the process schema so that the application can use it again, or to simply pass on the information after the form is submitted without storing the information. The default properties that are displayed in the filter properties table are field type, label, and internal name. These properties cannot be removed from the filter properties drop-down list and table. The other default properties that are displayed in the table are mandatory, enabled, read-only, and visible. These properties can be removed from the filter properties drop-down list and table. To show a property in the filter properties table, click the filter properties select box to display the drop-down list. Scroll to the property you want to display in the table and check the checkbox to the left of that property. To remove a property from the filter properties table, uncheck the checkbox. If you want to show all properties in the filter properties table, click the Select All checkbox. When you have completed your selections, click the OK button to apply the changes to the filter properties table. Clicking OK will close the filter properties drop-down list. To cancel your selections and return to the default filter properties, click the Cancel button. This will also close the filter properties drop-down list. The label column displays the name or label of each form control listed in the field type column that you used in building your eForm, and these labels can be edited. To edit the label, click the text box, delete the label text, and enter a new label. To change the property of a form control, check the checkbox for that form control in the column of the property you wish to change. For example, if you want to make a specific form control to be mandatory, follow that form control row to the mandatory column. Find the checkbox and check it. That form control will now be mandatory for the form user to complete before the form can be submitted. If you want all form controls to be mandatory, check the checkbox next to mandatory in the mandatory column header. This will select all the checkboxes in the mandatory column for all form controls that have the option to be mandatory. The same can be done for the other filter properties that have that option. The changes made in the Edit Fields window are saved automatically by the system. This completes the review of the Bulk Edit eForm Builder menu item. The next item on the eForm Builder menu is Row Scale. Row Scale lets you customize the height of each row on your eForm. Clicking on Row Scale will display the height of each row. Row height is displayed in pixels, with a boundary marker indicating the bottom of the row. To adjust the height of a row, click on the boundary marker and drag it down. This will change the height of the row, and the number displayed indicating the height of the row will change as the boundary marker is adjusted up and down. The minimum height of a row is 60 pixels, or the minimum height of the largest form control in that row. When you have completed the adjustments for the row heights, click on Row Scale again to hide the row heights and boundary markers from your eForm Builder screen. This completes the review of the Row Scale eForm Builder menu item. On the right side of the eForm Builder menu, you will find three icons. The first icon is of a desktop computer, the second is of a tablet, and the third a mobile phone. Each one of these icons represent how the eForm Builder screen will look in their prospective views for that device. The desktop view is how the eForm Builder screen will look on a standard screen size of either a desktop or laptop computer. The desktop view is the default view of the eForm Builder screen, and in this view, you will build your eForm. The tablet view is how your eForm Builder screen will look in either landscape or portrait view of a tablet. And Mobile Phone View is how the eForm Builder screen will look in either landscape or portrait view of a mobile phone. As you build your eForm, you can switch between the different views. Let's say, for example, the portrait view of a tablet. You can delete a form control from the tablet view or change the layout of the eForm without changing the desktop layout or the layout for the mobile phone. To see what form controls have been deleted from your tablet or mobile phone layouts, click on the Deleted Fields tab on the right side of the tablet or mobile phone eForm Builder screens. This will list the form controls that have been deleted. You can then drag those form controls back to your layout if you so choose. This completes the review of the eForm Builder menu. Now let's look at the toolbox on the left column. The toolbox contains the Common Controls, the Advanced Controls, and the Telerik Controls tabs. The Common Controls tab is the basic and most common controls used when building an eForm, such as text boxes and buttons. The Advanced Controls tab lists controls that require advanced control formatting or functions. For example, to make sure an email is formatted properly, or that a phone number contains the right number of digits and is formatted according to the proper country. The Telerik Controls tab is the list of controls made by Telerik and feature controls from both common and advanced controls that function similarly but with different styling. Each of these tabs contain the components or form controls needed to build your eForm. This completes the overview of the eForm Builder interface.